Peace don't always come free. Sometimes it costs everything. I used to shrink to keep the peace, bit my tongue, held my breath, let people stay in rooms with me who drained my spirit half to death. I was the glue, the listener, she'll understand. But nobody asked how I was, they just reached out for my hands.
Hey guys, so welcome to another day of the 7-day series, Peacemakers versus Peacekeepers, with Morning Fuel with the Driver, hosted by none other than your sister Nessa Driver, who also oversees Navigating Life with the Driver podcast on YouTube. If you have not checked that out, I encourage you to do so. You can find me by putting in the search box, all lowercase, at Journey with the Driver, and my beautiful face will pop up. And I would love it if you checked out the videos. If you see something you like, subscribe and share with a friend. So this week, we're on day 6. So far, we've talked about the differences between peacemaking and peacekeeping. We've talked about the dangers and the effects of long-term peacekeeping, peacemaking, how that takes courage, and also boundaries. Learning how to put those boundaries in place, what we need to start establishing boundaries, right? We've talked about how we can love someone and still choose peace. And sometimes choosing peace looks like having to detach from that person or that environment, whether it's temporary or permanent. We also talked about what if you can't leave, but you know deep down inside that's what needs to happen. Having a peace that is strategic when navigating those waters there. And so I felt for our last 2 days, I want to end it on notes of encouragement, and also just, basically encouragement and letting you know that if you see yourself making the shift, or you have made the shift, what you can expect. And even some of those expectations are not always positive feeling. They may not always leave you in a good place. And I want you to know that can sometimes be expected, and it's not because you've done something wrong. So that leads me into our subject for today, day 6, which says, when your peace isn't received. When your peace isn't received. What happens when you finally choose peace and it costs you the relationship or that job or that friendship? Not because you walked away, but because they did. Or because the environment may have shifted and suddenly it feels like you just don't fit there anymore. You finally got to the point where you're not arguing like you used to, not engaging in things that don't bring you peace. You're no longer over-explaining yourself anymore. You're not the one chasing, fixing, or over-giving. You found that version of you that exudes peace, not only outwardly, but also inwardly. You've done the work and you found it, and you feel clear. You got to the place where you've been able to establish healthy boundaries, right? But with all that, something within you kind of notices that, yes, I've changed, but seems like everything around me also has changed, and not for the better. What you may be seeing is maybe that person or their environment is starting to feel distant, or they're becoming distant from you, or those tensions that you were trying to address, that conflict, seem to have risen instead of decreased. Or maybe you're met with silence. You're met with silence. And that could leave you wondering, like, wait a minute, I did the work. I know I did the work. So why instead of feeling accomplished, why does this hurt? Why does this still hurt? Why am I still hurting? Why does it feel like instead of gaining that I've actually lost something? I've shared this week our theme scripture throughout these last 6 days, Matthew 5:9, which says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But sometimes you can feel like everything but blessed, right? And so today, this is where I want to share the reality that sometimes comes with choosing to be a peacemaker. The reality that sometimes that environment, that relationship that you were working so hard to create peace and reconciliation with, it actually just reveals to us that things that peacekeeping would have never revealed. When we do those efforts of peacemaking, we may start to see things and notice things that we didn't realize was there all the time, right? Like one main thing you may actually notice is, like I said, the key thing, your peace that you found, it doesn't feel good to the people who were actually used to benefiting from the chaos that they caused, benefiting from you feeling confused. Crazy. But peacemaking sometimes will reveal that. Because your growth, it often exposes what was only working because as a peacekeeper, you were overextending yourself. It exposes that that's the only reason why things were working, because you were doing all the hard work. You were doing the chasing. You were doing the fixing. So what seemed to have been working well, it was only doing that because you were putting all the effort in. But now that you have become a peacemaker and you have made the choice to have those healthy boundaries in place, you're starting to see that that's the really only reason why that person was staying around, why they were, pulling from you and showing you what you felt was love at that time. They were benefiting off of everything you were doing, the hard work you were doing. I don't know about you, but it doesn't feel good to have that realization, right? And here's the truth, though. When you stop playing the role of a peacekeeper, the people who got comfortable with that version of you, they don't know how to take you. And they don't know how to connect with the new you. That's just truth. They don't. If they were toxic and they did not notice the work you were doing or even value who you were becoming, when you finally become, they don't know how to deal with that person. No. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you did something wrong? That you were doing too much? I think you and I both know that the short answer to that is no. But if we be honest, because when you made the choice to peacemake, when I made the choice to peacemake, it was with the expectation that I wanted this to work. Your goal was not separation. It was to find true peace. But if we're honest, even though we were peacemaking, our goal was never separation, right? It was so we could find true peace and hopefully true reconciliation where things could finally work for the both of us, whether it was in a relationship, in a family, friendship, or in a work environment. You just wanted things to work. You wanted things to be peaceable for everyone, right? Because we love those people, or we love that environment. My blackness kicked in those peoples, right? Anyway, but we wanted to be able to find that without neglecting our own needs. And when that doesn't happen, and we're met with our peace not being received, and that person or that environment walking away or severing their ties with us, we often find that quiet feeling of guilt that sneaks in. It raises its ugly head. And then you begin questioning yourself, like, did I do too much? Was I too different? Like, or did I not try hard enough? Like, what did I do wrong? And behind those questions comes that sneaky sniper spirit and those questions that begin attacking your self-worth. You know, the ones that make you feel like your quest for peace and your self-worth don't quite match up, like you're not worth what you're asking for. Like you should have just been grateful for what you had in the moment and dealt with that and left it alone. Yeah. But I'm here today to encourage you and to let you know that I am, we're worth the ask. And no, it's not asking too much. You're not asking too much. I'm not asking too much. We're not being too much. And instead, I want you to look at it like this. Instead of being, I'm the one asking too much, I'm too different, I'm this and that. No, you are the one that's just chosen to no longer be available or accessible to those things that required you to be less. Plain and simple. Like I said, today we're talking about when you've done the work to create the peace, but because of that, the people you love choose to walk away. The reality of that, we're talking about that today. Now, we talked about the feelings of guilt that rise up. But I also want to hit on another feeling that sometimes it's hard to label that feeling. But in reality, that feeling is called grief. When we think of grief, we often think of losing someone to death. Someone we love has passed away, something, has passed away, basically. But honestly, I want you to know that any type of loss, big or small, if it was important to you, can bring on a sense of grief, a feeling of grief. And I want to tie it into the regard of when you do the work and your peace isn't received and they walk away. There's grief tied to losing that person, to missing that person, their presence, that environment. You do miss it. I mean, it was an intricate part of your everyday life, just about. So to get used to that empty space, you even miss what used to be. Like, let's be honest, every moment wasn't toxic, right? If it was, I don't think it would have been hard to leave. I don't think you would even been willing to want to do the work to fix it, right? Because there were some good parts. And that's what you're missing, because when it was good, it was good. You can even grieve missing what it could have been, what your vision, what your goal was with all of this work of being a peacemaker, how you envision things to turn out to be, but it didn't. That causes grief. You're grieving what isn't and what could have been. And honestly, sometimes it makes you question, did I do the right thing? Even though deep down inside, you already know that if you had the option or the opportunity to have them back in your life for that presence, for that hopefulness, that you couldn't have them and still be your whole self at the same time. Because nothing on their end has changed. Nothing in that environment has actually changed. Knowing that, though, doesn't make the grief any less real. No, it doesn't feel good. And it definitely is something that you don't want to overlook because you feel like, well, I'm wrong for feeling this way because it wasn't good for me anyway. No, you're human. Grief is going to come whether we want it to or not when it's associated with a loss of something that was a big part of our life. So no, it doesn't feel good. And I would tell you, it's definitely something that you'll want to take your time but also be intentional about working through, to navigate towards finding healing of that part that's wounded from the results. And I just want to interject here that sometimes that gets heavy doing that. So if you find yourself there, and if you ever find yourself where it's so heavy that you just don't know what to do, please don't ever feel like you have to carry that alone. That is the time to reach out to that trusted friend. Reach out to that professional. Reach out to that spiritual mentor, whoever that you feel you can confide in, and they will gently handle your heart with no judgment. Reach out. And like I said, the grief, it's real. It's not being extra. It's not being dramatic. No, it's real what you're feeling. Lean into it. But I want you to know also that this truth I'm getting ready to share, it's also real. Listen, you can do your part. You can do your part. And if you're here and and what I'm saying is resonating with you, that means you've done your part. But know that you can do your part and still not be met there. Met where? In that place where you have found wholeness and true peace. That toxic person, relationship, environment may not have the capacity to meet you there. Remember Romans 12 and 18 for the last couple of days? That part that says, as far as it depends on you. Again, that means that your responsibility ends there. Doing your part, what you can do to create peace, to be a peacemaker. So, if your peace has created distance, if choosing differently has cost you a connection, if they chose to pull back because you stopped overextending, overreaching in that situation or in that environment, I want you to know that that just means that everybody doesn't know how to receive the new version of you. No. The new version of you that has chosen to no longer abandon themselves for the sake of keeping peace. And just because they don't know how to accept and connect with that person, I want you to hear me. You need to know that those actions are not proof of you being a failure or you doing something wrong or not doing something enough. No. In actuality, what that shows is evidence of your growth. That you have grown emotionally, you have grown mentally, you have grown in areas that have promoted healing and self-love and self-care and self-worth. Yeah. I want to leave you with that. I want you to sit with that. Because whether you find yourself here right now, or maybe in the future after making efforts of peacemaking, I want you to remember today's subject. And I want you to know that your peace is worth it. You were worth it. And before I end today, I want to share a little food for thought. I always hear a saying that talks about choosing your heart. Okay? So in regards to peacemaking and peacekeeping, both are hard. Both can be difficult in the moment. Both are dealing with difficult situations. But only one will lead you to true peace, a healthy environment, and the version of you that is whole, that is seen, and that is genuinely respected. Genuinely respected. So again, I want you to think about choosing your heart. No, it doesn't feel good when people walk away. But this too shall pass. Do you want the peace of keeping a relationship intact that is not feeding into you positively? Or do you want the peace of letting go of that toxic situation? Having to work to heal through the pain of that grief and working through that guilt, only to come out on the other side healthy, whole, and healed.
Sometimes it costs everything.
Thank you for tuning in to day 6, when your peace isn't received. I hope that something I said today has resonated with you. Please feel free to share your thoughts, your comments, your questions in the comments. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow for day 7, where we're going to close this series out. Be blessed.
They just reached out for my hands. I kept forgiving silence, excuse and disrespect, calling it just how they are, while losing pieces of myself. My peace cost me my people, but I ain't sorry for the bill.